Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being flexible with the room arrangements. We are going to go out of our typical order, and well, we're going to start with David, then we're going to go to Jeremy Ginsburg, and then third is Jim Cameron, and then we'll revert back to this the alphabetical order by department that you're familiar with. So first, I just want to say thank you. I know you all spend a lot of your time putting together these reports, and the Board of Selectmen truly appreciates it. But these also, we get feedback from the community. So, so this information is shared throughout with our residents, and so it's really appreciated that you do put this effort in. And I just want to say that in general, I'm kind of a data person, so I find it really helpful when you're doing comparisons. Month to month is sometimes the best, but typically I personally think the year over year, it gives a lot of color to where you are. So if you could keep that in mind going forward, year to year comparisons are really helpful. Okay, so we're going to start with the Health Department, and David? Is there a mic up here?
Yeah, it looks like there is. Yeah. I don't know if it's...
Test. Yep. Yes?
That's right. I brought a visual. It says flu clinic today, room 119, and the arrow's pointing in the correct direction. Down the hall. I'm going to put this by the front door as I leave this meeting. But we have our flu clinic scheduled for seasonal flu. We had our first flu clinic last Thursday at the senior center and vaccinated about 56 people. We're here in this auditorium again. We haven't been here in several months, social distancing once more, because as we all know, COVID is making somewhat of a comeback. Our numbers aren't really showing that in the community at large. I was asked a question before about what's happening in the schools, and our monthly data, which I sent out to the board and which is on our website, does indicate that the kids are not that affected. They're sort of at the low end of the spectrum in terms of numbers of cases. The highest number of cases, 40 to 49-year-olds. So I guess I would echo the CDC recommendation that says get the new booster, because the new booster has protection against the variants, because the original vaccines that were given back when we first started with all the clinics that we had were for pretty much a different version of COVID than what's out now. So yeah, I would suggest considering getting the new booster. We, at the health department, we're not planning to run any clinics for COVID. Our local pharmacies are open 7 days a week and offer the vaccine pretty much round the clock while they're open. So the availability of vaccine is far greater now than it was when we first had our clinics, which were, 1 day or 2 days at most a week for a couple of hours. And the other problem is there's so many different types of vaccine that kind of categorizing everything and keeping track of stuff logistically for us is really difficult. So we'll leave it to those who do this all the time, the pharmacists and providers, and let them manage the population. And so far it's working out. As far as my report, I would welcome any questions from the board.
Board, have any questions?
Sure. I would assume the COVID rates are up. It's just that people are testing at home and probably not reporting it to the town or reporting it to...
Yeah, we have no idea.
Right.
So, that's why at the cover sheet of that report that we provide, it's just, the only thing that we could use the numbers for is to watch for trends. Okay. And we're not trending upward in terms of the laboratory reports. We're staying pretty flat on the weekly and monthly reports so far.
have two questions, David. The 5 bats, were they in one home? The 5 bats that were tested for rabies, were they from one residence? Or are we finding bats in multiple homes?
We submit bats to the State Health Laboratory for testing for rabies. And we have had no positive rabies results. For bat testing I don't remember the last time we had one over the years. So this is a regular thing that we do. We've always done this, submit bats for testing, but zero.
Okay.
Zero positivity. And the important thing about if you have an exposure to a bat is, rabies is fatal unless you get treated. And you don't know if the bat's been rabid, so get it tested. No charge.
And then my last question is, on the opioid settlement, do we have a number?
A number
The opioid settlement, yes.
for opiate overdoses?
For the settlement, the financial settlement.
There was an opiate settlement, and the town was awarded a $10,000, do we call it a grant? Settlement fund. So the question is, what do you do with it? And so there's a whole list of potential activities that we could consider. What I've tried to do is to look amongst my colleagues who may have received similar amounts of money, which really, 10,000 is pretty good, but then again, I don't think it makes sense for Darien to produce, say, a PSA just for Darien. I think that if we collaborated with other departments or other groups, pool our money together, maybe, because we all have the same message. So I think if we could put our money together, we could do a better product at the end of the time. So that's what I'm trying to do. So we have 10,000. I think that's an 18-year award. That money is not just a one-off. There's a lot of money to be coming over time, but to just spend $10,000 for the town, you don't have to hire somebody to do publicity or something like that, I don't think is an efficient use of the money. And I would rather try to collaborate with others.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Is that money earmarked for the fight against the opiate epidemic? Will it be used specifically for that?
It's specific for opiate response in some regard.
Thank you.
So it could be, to hire, like, say, recovery coaches, to have somebody be embedded with the EMS, but $10,000 doesn't go very far for people like that. So if we had like a regional kind of a group that would be able to respond to these events, I again think that's the way to do it.
Okay. Any other questions for David?
No.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you. And I'll go put this out in the hallway and just so that everybody knows.
Okay, next we have Jeremy Ginsberg, Director, and he's Land Use, Building and Planning and Zoning.
Good morning. 2 quick updates to build on the highlights at the top of page 1 of my report. Last night, the RTM did vote unanimously to opt out of the accessory apartment requirements of the state statutes. So we are officially out at this point, which is great news. And the other thing I want to mention, which I know Bob Bush will follow up on as well, is the numerous hours that the building officials put in, Gary and Mike, on weekly, more than weekly, almost daily inspections of the Federal Realty project to get them open on the second floor so we can have those people move into those apartments. The commercial tenants, we expect maybe 1 to try to get in before Christmas, and all the other commercial tenants will start first quarter next year. So it continues to be quite active over there, with the building department going over very frequently to inspect apartments, and that will be exacerbated by 20 or 30 commercial tenants moving in essence, one a week for an entire quarter. So a lot going on over there. Happy to answer any questions you may have about the reports.
With all the attention or, a lot of the work needed to be done looking at the federal realty, how is the backlog on residential building inspections and zoning?
The backlogs in our office for permitting are seasonal, so there's certain times a year which are busier than others. The other thing we're doing now, which we are giving much more attention to, are drainage plans, drainage reports. We're spending a lot more time, and it's not us, it's Ed and his team over in Public Works who are scrutinizing the proposals, making sure they comply with the regulations. So if you have a project that's big enough that requires a drainage report, it will take at least a week or 2 or 3 in our office. Ed and I have discussed the possibility of putting something in the budget for a person to review such drainage reports to keep these moving along quicker. But what we're seeing is a lot of people with putting their money in real estate, adding on to their houses, pools, decks, house additions. Why not just knock down my house and build an all-new house? Why not? So we try to keep the smaller permits moving along, as you know. So if it's a simple renovation or a simple portico or whatever it is, we keep those moving along. But we do scrutinize the big projects, and if you've driven down, I would recommend that all of you drive down Long Neck Point Road, if you can make it down the street, to see what is going on down there. Since the sewers went in 10 years ago, it's been nonstop. You can't even drive down the street. Millions upon millions upon millions of dollars are being pumped into real estate on Long Neck Point Road.
Any other questions for Jeremy?
No, thank you,
No?
Jeremy.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Okay, next we have Jim Cameron for 79.
Good morning. Thank you for accommodating my schedule. Appreciate it. Sorry to keep you guys waiting. It was a quiet summer in Town Hall, and our viewership reflected that on TV 79, but we stayed as busy as we could with some new programs. We're interviewing all the chairs of the boards and commissions. So we've worked our way through P&Z, Blight, Commission on Aging, Human Services, ARB, Board of Finance, Senior Center, Parks and Rec, and working on getting the rest of them as well, too. And I think that will probably include our first Selectwoman as well at some point. We have been able to carry, thanks to CTN and CPTV, the statewide candidates debates for the gubernatorial race. Last Friday's 4th Congressional District race debate is also available and airing on TV 79. The Senate race for Norwalk and Darien was held last night. We're expecting to get that video later today, and we'll get that on the air and on our Vimeo channel ASAP. As you know, the League of Women Voters decided not to hold a candidates' night tonight. I'm sorry, in Darien this year. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Jim, I have one question.
Yes.
So the grant that you're, the Area 9 grant.
Yes.
You said you're currently evaluating, so do you have any color on that, what you're thinking?
Yeah, we receive money we're part of the Area 9 Cable Council, and all TV subscribers to Altice, Cablevision, Frontier, if you look at your bill, you'll see that $5 a year is collected by FCC order across the country, and that's divided up among educational and government and public access channels. So Area 9 receives that grant money through Frontier, Altice, and divvies it up to the towns. So our fall grant, some of which can be used for camera operators, some of which will be used for capital equipment, and I think one of the things that we're going to order are some gooseneck microphones to be able to put across the front of this table So you won't be working with one microphone, you'll have 4 or 5. Remains to be seen if we're going to put on-off switches on them, but I think we'll go with whatever the technology provides. So we're finishing up that grant request, and we'll probably submit that to Area 9 at the meeting next week.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you, Jim.
No? Okay, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll go back to our regular scheduled programming, and we'll go to Tony Homicky for the Assessor's Office.
Good morning. The grand list, as Jeremy referenced, is healthy and moving along fairly well. We'll have that completed by the end of January. We average about 400 building permits a year. We're still on schedule to have about the same number of amounts. I wanted to highlight that the 1,100 businesses that we have in town must file their business personal property declarations or be subject to a 25% penalty. We don't like to overassess. We don't want to underassess. We want to properly assess. I want to compliment the efforts that Jeremy's office and the building department have done with the land use software. It's called OpenGov. When you've talked about any limitations on the inspection process, the assessor's office, with 3 certified Connecticut assessors, are grateful to have that software in place because it allows us to monitor their eyes as well as our eyes when we do inspections as construction continues in town. I want to reference also the revaluation will be for next year, not this year. I've attached a memo, press release on that. If you can refer to the town website, we have 5 or 6 PDF references about the revaluation carried back from the 18 revaluation. It's a 5-year update, and it will be applicable for October 1 of 23, highlighted with a Q&A, a question and answer about what the property tax revaluation cycle is about. There's 19 bullets on the website that we have referencing what the reval process, and I'll have many more sessions to present to you as the facts come in over the next year. That's my report. Welcome questions.
Go ahead, sir.
The only question I had was, do they need to gain access to people's homes, or?
We will physically view each and every property at a variety of levels, including oblique imagery from above. There's flights going on with some of the software that we have. Interior inspections are not required. They're actually not authorized by the state of Connecticut.
Got it.
The building official for health reasons or the health department would have access for reasons. The assessor's office doesn't have a statutory mandate or
Right.
allowance to do interior inspections, but it will be viewing 2 if not 3 times.
Okay, thank you.
Question, sir. Okay, anyone else? No? Okay, thanks, Tony. Next, we have Joe Larkovic for Darien Emergency Medical Services.
Good morning. The only thing I have to add to my report is a shameless plug for our fall fundraiser. The Haunted House is back, Sunday, October 30th, 2 to 4. So please join us. Other than that, I'll take any questions on my report.
Joe, I have a question on the Narcan kits that you handed out. How many did you hand out?
I'm sorry, what was
The Narcan kits?
it? So far, gratefully none.
Okay,
But
number.
they're on each one of the ambulances, and whenever there is a suspected opioid case, we'll leave one with the family or the patient or friends, caregivers, whoever would like to be trained on how to use it and keep it nearby.
So somebody could just show up at Post 53, ask for a Narcan kit, you'll give quick training? How's that process work?
Yes, so currently what we're trying to do is give them the families that need at the time that they call 911.
Okay.
Right now, we're waiting on extra kits from the state, and then once we have a reserve at the building, we'll encourage people to come by and get them as well.
Great, thank you.
any other questions for Joe? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Great report. Thanks, Joe. Next, we have Mark McEwen, Emergency Management.
Morning, everybody. I'd just like to highlight the field day, which occurred at the beginning of, or the middle of September, where Region 1 displayed all the assets that have been purchased with the Demis grants over the years from 2008 on. It was an accumulation, and it was very good for people to see what we've purchased on a regional level since they've removed the grants from the local level. So I think most notably was the hazmat team, the bomb teams, Eversource and the utilities were there, and even a helicopter from, I believe it's Stratford. And all those things are funded with money from that grant. I also like to bring the board's attention to Crimmins Road project has been fully wrapped up. The lawn is growing. We're just waiting for the check from the state of Connecticut. And the money from the increased cost of compliance grant came through, so the $30,000 has been reimbursed to the town for that. I'll take any questions that the board may have.
That was my question. Any questions for Mark?
No, thank you.
No? Okay, seeing none. Thanks, Mark. All right, next we have Jen Terneski, our Finance Director.
Good morning. Focus in my office right now is on completing the audit and beginning budget development. Other than that, we have a couple of smaller projects that you can see on my report. I have nothing to add, but any questions I'd be willing to address.
Just curious how the transition from Peoples to M&T went, and if there was any.
There were challenges.
Yep.
Overall, I think on the commercial side, it went a lot better than on the personal banking side. We did have access to their system ahead of time. There wasn't that much support initially with learning their system. There are a few changes and just differences in their terminology or some additional steps in their process, but once they were able to allow consistent access to the website, I think it's worked out really well. And they did seem to throw some additional resources at the commercial side when they realized that people were struggling.
Any other questions for Jen?
No, thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Next, we have Bobby Bush, our Fire Marshal.
Morning, all. Just like to add to what Jeremy said for the federal project. This past weekend was supposed to be the beginning of move-in for the tenants in the apartments. The commercial portion of the project continues to move along, as well as the construction of building R3, which is the building closest to Heights Road. In the center of town, the Corbin project, the building that is closest to Old Kings Highway South is almost ready. They're hoping, if they don't have any more material delays, that they'll be able to have apartments moving in the end of the month, beginning of November. And the other two buildings are moving along pretty quickly. Other than that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Bobby, the Weburn, is that remediation for that fire, is that completed?
They are, yes, I think everything is completed there, and they were just working last week or the week before on getting the outside fire pits recommissioned and turned back on with repairs to the gas lines.
Okay. For federal, how do you interact with the people that are renting as far as fire alarm information goes?
The apartment tenants?
Yeah. Is that your role, or?
No, so they are supposed to have instructions for all the tenants for fire evacuation policies and everything. Mm-hmm. And, we will happily work with the tenants if anybody would like any kind of assistance, instructions, anything like that from us.
Okay. So I see that the calls dropped 18%, but I'm thinking that's just a normal swing, not a trend.
What's dropped 18%?
Your total calls, page 6.
Oh, yeah, it's just a ebb and flow.
Right, yeah. Okay.
There's really no discernible statistic to it.
Any other questions for Bobby? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have Susan Barksdale, our HR Director. Human Resources Director, sorry. This is your first report, right?
Yes, other than last time saying hi, I have nothing to say. Yeah. Good morning. So this quarter has pretty much, the first two-thirds of it at least, were pretty much all about recruitment. We did a lot of interviewing and stuff like that. It's all listed there in the beginning of the report. And the only thing about this report that I just wanted to touch on is we're very excited, that second bullet under other projects, about the fact that we were going to be doing a gathering for the employee luncheon down in the Mather Center, kind of like the old times. I guess you guys haven't done it. We haven't done it since 2019, but that's going to be changing just a little bit. We're still going to be doing a celebration, but it won't be, a typical lunch gathering, just due to COVID concerns. It's still going to be fun. We're still going to do something, but we're putting our heads together to figure out how to make that happen safely. So other than that, everything else is the same, unless you guys have any questions.
Great report. Any questions for Susan? Okay, thanks, Susan. Next, we have Allie Ramstack, our Human Services Director.
Good morning. One thing, Monica, you had asked me is comparing last year to this year, and so I did check, and so we had 32 new clients this quarter, and last year it was 30, so basically the same.
Same, okay.
Yep. And one thing I wanted to just reiterate is that this weekend on Saturday is the Out of Darkness Walk, which is a fundraiser for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the Connecticut chapter. It's at Jessup Green in Westport at 10 o'clock. It's 2 miles, and I think we're going to have a really large turnout from the Darien community, which should be really a good bonding experience for all of us after all we've gone through over the last 6 months. So if there's any interest in that, it's on our website, or you can reach out to Human Services. And any questions?
So people can still sign up?
Yep.
Okay, good
You
to
don't
know.
even have to fundraise. You can just show up and walk. You don't necessarily have to fundraise.
Okay. Any questions?
So on the ARP funding, if you talk about, the report, you've used 15,345 of the 250,000 so far, which is great. Any kind of, what's the immediate next steps in terms of using those funds?
So far we've used it mostly for mental health first aid training. That's what that's gone through. And then also Paula Sutliff and myself, we were both trained, or she's going to be trained next week. So that's where most of that money has gone to. I think maybe come the new year, I can lean on Jen and Kate and talk about how we can go about that grant process for the nonprofits and the food insecurity. Honestly, right now, I haven't really addressed it yet because we've been preoccupied with all the mental health issues and making that a priority.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Allie, how do you reach out regarding the energy assistance? Obviously, you help the people that you've helped in the past, but is there any outreach to the community in general?
Yep. Well, Marley posts it on social media and in the paper and whatnot. And then we do reach out to all of our clients who applied the previous 2 years. And then we also will do outreach to all of the people who live at the Heights and at the Royal, because most of those people would be eligible. Maybe not everyone at the Royal, but so we'll do a blanket kind of letter because there are new tenants obviously coming in throughout the year.
Perfect. Okay.
And this year, again, there's no asset limit, which is great because this is the third year in a row. Because of COVID, that there's no asset limit. So a lot of our seniors in particular are eligible because if they have an IRA or something like that, and it's liquid if you're over, I think, 65 and a half. So there's been quite a few seniors who've been able to participate that normally wouldn't. So I don't know if that's going to stick or not, but we'll see. It's up to the state.
Good for this year anyhow. Any other questions for Allie?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Allie. Jeff Adams? Our IT, George, okay.
Morning.
Good morning, George.
Just a major thing with our upgrades of the servers. We're currently doing the police department, and we've pretty much completed everything within the town and also the school system. If I have any questions, welcome to.
Do not. Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
No? Thanks, George. Next, we have Pam Geary, our Park and Rec Director.
Good morning. I'd just like to highlight on my report that the tennis court project's going along very well and looking to have temporary lines put on the course by the end of October, with permanent lines done in May of 2023. And other than that, my report, I think, speaks for itself. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
Pam, on the water fountains, where you're thinking about putting them, is there plumbing? Like Highland, there's no plumbing, so what are you thinking
Highland, we
there?
just got a quote on that. The idea was, I asked Kate whether she thought it would be a good idea if we had additional money. But unfortunately, to plumb that out to the path, I won't have enough money.
Right, yeah, I was wondering.
So right now, it's Cherry Lawn, Tilly, Weed Beach, and Baker.
Okay, because they have them.
Replacing existing ones.
Right, okay. And the geese?
Yeah, I have the same question.
Terrific to see. There are so many little kids playing on Renshaw. I am so excited that the geese are doing double time at Tilly and Renshaw, because there are very short people on Renshaw all the time, little teeny weeny, very close to the other stuff. So I would ask that continue to be a focus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tilly also, that is.
Yes, Tilly actually, I saw an immediate result there, but actually they're back again. So I've gotten a couple residents that have complained, but the service is still out there, so it just takes time.
Right. It's good to send them all. We like residents in Darien, except for geese. We don't like geese. No geese.
Trust me, I don't either.
Any other questions for Pam?
Sure, I just I saw the whole Highland movie kind of incident. Was that company, had you ever used them before?
They used them last year, yes.
And there were no issues last year, and this year it was just a flub?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
So is there a plan to try to look for another company at this point?
Yes, between Alicia and I, yes, we will be looking. There are plenty. I have never had experience with that company before. Alicia and Jamie Gore had a great experience last year, so there would be no reason to not hire them again this year after a great experience last year. So unfortunately, sometimes things happen, and we tried our best to do everything we could
Sorry that
to make it
happened.
happen.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Sorry that happened. Thank you.
Pam, really quick, the Tilly, the program that you do at lighting the menorah and the cookie thing, you're still doing that, right?
We are. We joined forces for the last, I think, 4 years now with the Darien Sports Shop, so we assist them with the tree lighting, and we'll still be doing that this year. The only change is that last year they combined the tree lighting with our old-fashioned holiday, and we felt moving forward just wasn't a great idea because we were too stretched with the lack of staff, and Jamie Gore was literally running over to the tree lighting while I was trying to clean up from the old-fashioned holiday. So we are going back to keep that a separate day. So we'll do the tree lighting, and then 2 weeks later we'll have our old-fashioned holiday at Tilly Pond.
Yeah, I think the old-fashioned, for the little kids, it's a lot to go to the old-fashioned and then go to the tree lighting. It makes for a long day.
It'll be better attended separately.
Yeah, great plan. Any other questions for Pam?
No.
No? Oh,
Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Next, we have Chief Anderson for PD. Oh, we have Jerry. That's right.
Good morning, all. The chief would like to extend his apology for not being able to be here as he is attending the International Association of Chiefs of Police in Dallas, Texas, with 16,000 other law enforcement officials. But he would once again like to extend his appreciation for that opportunity. As most of you know, tragically, 2 Connecticut officers in Bristol were killed last week, and we will be sending several officers to represent the agency in the town on Friday at the services. And we hope you found the report to be comprehensive, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Jerry?
Just real quick, I didn't know that you guys offered this. Planning and equipment procedure continues for the rape aggression defense training class. Is that open
Yeah,
to
that's
the
a new
public?
program that Officer Leslie Silva, who's one of our canine handlers, has initiated through our training division. We're hoping to get that rolling out in the first quarter of next year. We're going to target a couple of different populations here in town, but it's designed to teach kind of self-defense techniques to vulnerable populations of female community members. And we'll see how the response to that is, and we'll extend it to other populations within town and maybe even outside of town. But I don't believe, to my knowledge, there are any programs that are similar in the area, so we're happy to be kind of pioneering it.
Like 18 and over?
Yeah.
At this point? Okay.
And I think, I don't know enough about it, it's on the other side of the house. Captain Hedema handles that side of it, but the program can be geared differently depending on what the population and what the audience is, but we're excited to get that rolled out.
Thank you for doing that.
Do you have any comments on the building itself in terms of work that's underway and where things stand right at the moment, and whether anything is urgent?
Our facility itself, again, that falls on Captain Hedema's side, but I can't help but be somewhat familiar with it.
I'm asking.
Thankfully, I wasn't really around too much this summer, but we didn't, face some of the same problems we have over the years. The HVAC system seems to be under control. Public Works and Dave Sabini have been great to us, and thankfully we haven't had any issues recently with the sanitary sewer issues that we've faced over the last couple of years, so I don't have anything really negative to say about the conditions at this point.
Glad to hear it.
Jerry, I have one last question.
Sure.
The Citizens Police Academy, can you tell us a little bit about that?
We haven't had that in a couple of years. Typically, our youth division and our detective bureau ran it. We're a little stretched thin in our detective division right now, so we're asking for officers to kind of step up and take on that initiative. I just received an email yesterday. We have 4 or 5 officers that are interested in starting the program back up again. Typically what happens is we pick a chunk of time. It's like a 4-week program. We'll meet once every 2 weeks. I forget exactly if it was every 2 weeks or once a week, and we take applications. We cap it at about 20 people, and we do things like building tours. We talk about the accident investigation team, our emergency response team, and each night we meet, there'll be a different block of instruction to kind of let the students become familiar with kind of the way we operate and what we do.
Interesting.
Does this tend to be like a younger demographic of people that come sort of as like a recruitment?
From what I remember, the audience or student body, so to speak, wasn't young. It was more just interested residents who maybe didn't have a real working knowledge of what the police department did, and it ranged from a decent age group, from a younger to a older age group. But like I said, we haven't had it in about 5 years, so we're looking forward to get that up and running again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jerry? No? Okay. Thanks, Jerry. Ed Gentile's not here, so we are going to go to Susan Gray and Kara Gately for Register of Voters.
Good morning.
You have our report. We have an election on November 8th. Do you have any questions?
Sure. How are you doing with recruiting for poll workers? I remember that was kind of an issue.
We are recruiting poll workers. We are getting there. We still have a few openings, and oddly enough, we have a few Republican openings for ARs, because usually it's the other way. We don't have enough Democrats. But we need I think, 2 more assistant registrars in 2 of our poll sites. We will take half days, so it could be 4 people, or it could be 2 if they'll work a whole day.
Is it something you need training to do? Is there a class that you have to take? in
There
order to be
is a
poll worker?
2-hour training session that's required, and we're kind of getting down to the wire because I have to train them, and the election's in 3 weeks. But we do have some other names that we're pursuing, and someone volunteered yesterday, so when I go back to the office, I'll double check. But we're monitoring the numbers every single day, and what we decided to do was to add an extra ballot clerk to District 1, because as you know, District 1 was carved into 3 different, it was 4, and now it's 3 different sections, precincts. So we worked with LHS, our ballot and memory card people this year, and we asked them if we could do different colored ballots. They will not allow the poll site ballots, only the absentees, to be different colors, except that they will let us have 2 different colors in District 1, cream and white instead of all white. But I think we still need to get another ballot clerk so that we don't get confused with those white ballots. Okay. So we're down a ballot clerk, an extra ballot clerk in District 1. If you have any people who want to volunteer, we're ready to train them.
I noted in the report that there were 1,034 voters removed from the official list. So, like, 2-part question is: 1, is that a typical number? And 2, just briefly, what's the process that you go through to go through that list by which you would then remove voters?
So that's called a canvass of the vote, and it's a statewide initiative. I think it's done in every single state. And someone in our office, one of our deputies, conducts that, and it runs from January until May. And we send out notices to people who have moved or have not voted in several years. If we don't get anything back from them, we're allowed to remove them from the list if it's been a certain amount of time that has elapsed. So that is our way of cleaning up the voter rolls, and it happens once a year.
And is that a typical number, 1,034?
I mean, sometimes we've had more than that. Sometimes we've had a couple thousand. So yes, that was a typical number. But last year was also a year where there was a lot of influx into town. A lot of people sold their properties over the last 2 years during COVID. And so we did remove, it wasn't atypical though, but we did remove a lot of people from the voting list, but we added a lot of people to the voting list. So we have a very robust voting population in Darien relative to our residential population.
Thank you.
I have one question, Susan. We talked, and Kara, maybe you might be the one to answer this. We talked about having a FAQ laminated for the registers to help the day of, should there be a question that comes up that they don't have the answer to and they can't reach somebody by phone. Are you going to do that? You are? Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Susan or Kara? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Beth Paris, our Director for Senior Center.
Good morning. I have nothing to add to the report, but I want to say that there has been more vigorous attendance, but we have been seeing the COVID surge for probably the last few weeks. And mostly people are using very good judgment, calling in, staying out themselves, not coming back for the 10 days. So that's a good thing. We're bringing back in the next quarter, the Thankful for You Luncheon and Circle of Light, but not to the numbers that we would have done, the 120 to 150 people. Probably going to ask David for his suggestion of how many we actually should have in the room. We're going to stick with, obviously, serving people and cleaning up. But we want to have the event come back because I think it's really good for everybody's morale. And also, we're seeing very vigorous attendance. So we're limiting things ourselves, and we're keeping people safe by, obviously, a lot of folks that are coming into the center are self-masking. We're not saying they have to, but they are. And many of our population is getting the new booster. So that's, that's kind of all good stuff. But we're adding more programs, which is really great, getting a lot more opportunities in. I would say that for messaging purposes, I'd like to shout out to Allie that I can put in the constant contact that goes out every week, anything that she would like for, especially for energy assistance. We actually have someone doing the Medicare Choices program starting actually today from our area agency on aging to kind of help with the new folks that are coming in that are looking for some assistance in finding out what would be their best option. So just anything that's a weekly, this constant contact goes out weekly. So if anything is specific to seniors that any department would like us to advertise, we'd be happy to do it.
Beth, I have one question. The falls, I see that from the ambulance stats, that falls are a big part of the calls. What's your department doing for that?
Most of the, we did our Falls Prevention Week and had several programs, but we have contacted Fairfield University. So this spring semester, the masters, the graduate students, the nurses will be coming in to do that 16-week program again, which I highly, highly recommend because it basically is about prevention. It's not about when you fall, it's how to prevent falling. And then we have several exercise programs that are actually geared toward balance, keeping your balance as accurate and as capable as you can possibly be as you age. So that's really almost all of our exercise programs focus on balance. But we're very lucky that we're chosen every year. Not everybody gets the opportunity to have the program, but because we have such a vigorous attendance, Fairfield University has been gracious. They actually reached out to us.
Great.
So in the spring semester, we'll have that course again.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
In terms of program participation, what percentage is all Darien residents versus out of Darien?
At this particular point in time, I knew somebody was eventually going to ask me.
And is that
We are
trending?
actually.
And is that trending in any particular?
It is trending now, ever since the vaccine. This is what COVID was good to us. Many people saw the Mather Center that had never seen it before until they came in for the vaccination clinic. We are on hold with taking non-resident members in because we, first of all, we want to get our percentages up. But more Darien residents, I think since COVID, as they started to take walks in the parks that maybe never did before or explore their, the actual terrain of the whole entire town, the same thing happened to us. So we've seen an increase, and I note what Monica just said. I'll make sure that I give you in the next report a percentage increase, and I can tell you how many are Darien residents as opposed to non-residents. But we are on a freeze with non-resident members coming in. They're calling us, they're applying, and they have to wait till we let them become members at this point.
Any other questions?
No, thank you,
No?
Beth, for all that
Thanks.
you do.
Thanks,
All right,
Beth. Next, we have Kathy Larkins, our tax collector.
So good morning. I just have a few highlights. Collections are on target with prior years. The office is currently processing the $4.1 million sewer billing, and so far this month we've processed over 1.6 million of it. And lastly, the commuter parking permit holders who are delinquent on their taxes, you can see we started off with almost $46,000 in delinquent taxes, and we are now down to under $1,400. So that ordinance really does help us collect taxes. And that's it. I don't know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Next, we have Krista McNamara, our town clerk.
Good morning, everybody.
I wanted to first address one of your questions, Mike, that you had earlier to the Register of Voters, that the town clerk's office liaises continuously with the Register of Voters. And for example, just the other day, I had an email of an RTM member who moved out of town. I sent that information to Corey, and that person is now on the off list. So it's an ongoing, in addition to the canvas, which was brought up before, this is an ongoing process where we are trying to keep that voter list as clean as possible. So just wanted to address that first. So town clerk's office, we're very busy right now getting ready for elections. As you know, the town clerk handles the absentee ballot process. The Register of Voters handles the poll ballots. So right now, for year over year, currently we have issued 531 absentee ballots. We have received 103 back. The greatest volume we're seeing is in District 6. In 2021, in total, we did 1,142 ballots issued and 991 returned. So we're going to, as my report mentioned, that we're going to see an uptick in voting by absentee ballot because of the 4,000 applications that were sent to unsuspecting residents by the campaigns. Otherwise, the office continues to process land filings, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates. Dog licenses are on an uptick. We're getting people in left and right, thanks to social media, for the $75 fine that went in effective October 1st. We're getting people to come in to license their dogs. So it continues to stay busy with many facets of life here in Darien. And happy to answer any questions.
Just clarify for me. So the 4,000 ballots were not sent, the applications are not being sent by the state of Connecticut. They're being sent by campaigns.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. By the two parties.
Yeah.
It's causing quite a bit of confusion because we see family members come in and wonder why dad got the application and mom did not. So it's causing confusion in our offices.
Krista, I have one. Any other questions for Krista? Krista, I have one question. So for RTM, can you, what's the process if you want to be a write-in candidate?
Sure, absolutely. We went through this last night with the, at the RTM meeting. So there's one more other opportunity for someone to join the RTM, and it says a write-in candidate. It's exactly as it sounds. An individual's name would have to be written in on the ballot. There's a line for that available. In order to do so, the candidate needs to come into my office and file the write-in application form. It's on our website, it's on the state's website, it's just, you literally just sign your name. After that point, you would canvass and try to get people to vote for you, and as long as you have 25 votes, you're an eligible candidate to win. That make sense?
Okay, so between now and Election Day, you're simply signing a form. You're not collecting any signatures.
It's correct. It's one form. October 25th is the deadline. That's set by state statute.
Okay.
October 25th, you file your form, and then on Election Day, you get electors to write in the name, your name, the candidate's name, to be considered a viable candidate. We have contested seats in District 6, District 4, I believe District 2 will have one candidate at least with a one-year term versus a two-year term. We do have an issue with District 4, not to get too much into the weeds, because we had the resignation of this individual whom I mentioned before, who notified me that she moved out yesterday, so that changes our ballot. So I will be working with the Register of Voters to figure out how best to address that.
Okay. Any other questions for Krista?
Just one more thing kind of stuck out to me. Foreclosure filings seem to be up pretty much from last year. Now, I don't have the data from 2019 when, before COVID happened and there was a bunch of help that was happening. Is this common, or is 19 kind of a...
I'm happy to supply more. I can go back 5 years to get that information, absolutely, and supply that to you. I can't speak to why people are foreclosing. I mean, clearly we're seeing a slowdown. I mean, mortgage rates are rising. We're seeing, we expect our conveyance will be down next year as I start preparing our budget. I mean, that's just where the economy is right now, but I'm happy to supply that information for foreclosures, yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Krista? No? Okay, thanks, Krista.
Great, thank you.
Next, we have Joan Hendrickson, our town treasurer.
Good morning. As you all probably know, the financial world is a volatile place these days, and I'm trying to take advantage of that as best I can. I have nothing really to add. You should have a copy of the portfolio report. All of you have that. The only thing that I will add is that I redo our projections for our budget daily. As you can see, I've made the budget in 2 months. So the new amount that I expect to make, and again, that's as of this week, would be between $700,000 and $1 million, based on what's happening. But any questions?
I have one, Joan. So I'm happy to see the T-bill purchase.
That came in September, so it wasn't on the portfolio report. It will be in
Right.
there. Yeah.
But you did include it here. Are you planning on adding to those that asset? Are you going to be buying more T-bills?
That is really up to Jen.
Okay.
It's if she gives me money. She was comfortable with the $2 million. The T-bill, anytime you see a fixed, like a CD or T-bill, that comes out of our fund balance, and we try to keep a certain amount. Again, I'm going by what she needs for cash flow. One of the goals I have this year is trying to match my investments closer to her cash flow. So if you can see that the T-bills were for 6 months, which was the sweet spot, as I call it, for T-bills, but it also matched up with a cash flow that was within the year. I won't be probably doing another 6 months again, but right now that's what she's comfortable with. Again, I ask her if that's something I can tie up or not. But really, it depends on whether you need that fund balance and how much we should keep liquid or not. So we're at 27 million, I believe, now for fund balance. So if you take all the CDs and the T-bills, that's what we fixed, and it's a certain percentage of the fund balance.
I guess what I'm really asking is, when you roll off the CD, are you going to be looking at T-bills?
Yes, but I will only be looking, hopefully, again, trying to match the cash flows. I would probably be looking at a 3 or 2
Right, maturity.
or
Right.
months, yes.
But you will look at that asset?
Yes,
Okay.
I will. I will
Great.
be renewing.
Okay. Any other questions for Joan? Okay. Thanks, Joan.
With T-bill rates where they are right now, I was talking to our company bank the other day, and they have a treasury bill, almost like a money market account. In other words, it provides sort of T-bill-like rates, but the liquidity is instant whenever you need the funds.
I'm having trouble hearing you, John.
I'm sorry. There's offerings now where you could get a treasury bill money market, if you will, something like that. That at least when I checked, I guess 2 Fridays ago, it was paying north of 2.5%. So not a 4+% 1-year T-bill rate. But it just struck me as interesting because it's a vehicle where you could capture those kinds of rates and yet still have instant liquidity for those funds and have them invested in treasury bills. So my general question is whether you have given sort of a rethink to how things like your bank CDs are invested over time at these kinds of rates, which I know have obviously improved since August, to some vehicle that would provide the sort of same security, same liquidity, but significantly higher interest.
I would categorize that, and I would have to investigate further, as a synthetic, because it isn't actually a market. The statute reads for certain type of instruments. So generally, I would say we would probably not be looking at that. Jim Palin, as you know, is the font of all knowledge for what's synthetic and what is actual market standard. And I've asked him, the state, for example, does stuff like that, because I once asked him what a rolling repo forward was, and that they were doing this, and he was explaining it to me because nobody seemed to know. But anything that's a synthetic, and it is a synthetic, and the state will do that, but we're really not, by statute, that's not designated as something we can do. So I don't think I'd get it approved by Wayne, number one. And number two, I'd like to I like to do the straight and narrow, but I always look at something that gives me more yield.
Absolutely. I just think about that in terms of this yield versus that yield. And it's got 200 basis points.
Yeah.
It's not non-trivial, so it might be worth being a little aggressive in terms of looking into.
Yeah, it's more understanding what it is. And again, from what I've been told, and again, I'd have to investigate further, it would be a synthetic which wouldn't meet statute. Any other question?
No? Okay, thanks, Joan. And last but not least, we have Youth Commission, Alicia Villa.
I know that this past Saturday will be included in next quarter's report, but we had another remarkably successful drive-through food drive, and just humbled by the generosity that people show in this community. The guesstimate poundage, if that's a word, 1,350 pounds worth of food donated in a 3-hour period on Saturday. So my report stands as submitted. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And thanks also to the RTC and the DTC for finally delivering some bodies to the Youth Commission. We now have 5 adult members, myself not included, and standing is 7, so 2 more.
Okay. I'm just curious when recruiting starts for your summer camps for...
When what?
Recruitment for summer camp counselors starts.
Oh, I was asked that question at the Tokenie Fair Night on Friday. The invitations to qualified candidates are sent out to last year's staff in December. Okay. Their positions are guaranteed until early February, and then late February we open up the application process to new candidates.
Any way we can help sort of advertise that, please reach out to us.
Oh, I will. I will, because
I'm sure my daughter's going to be chomping at the bit for a job, as many of her friends. So.
As we all know, staffing on any level is a challenge these days. And last summer was no exception.
Alicia, one last question. Enrollment for the TOPS program, I love that program. Is that pretty your average, typical?
So since this report was submitted, the 8th grade enrollment has increased by 100 because of the event on Friday night. Okay. It's right before the events is when we get a spike in enrollment, and we promote through last year's membership, we promote through the middle school newsletter, we beg, we encourage, we almost bribe, but I can't say that publicly. No, it's where we expect it to be right now.
Okay. Any other questions for Alicia? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Okay, so that concludes the department head meeting. Thank you all for joining us. Great to see everybody. And now we will be going into our regular Board of Selectmen meeting. Okay, I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order on Tuesday, October 18th. It is 9:45.
No,
and
really, 9:39.
9:39?
Yeah, the clock's fast.
Oh, and I was wrong anyhow. Okay. Now it's 9:40. I'm kidding. It's 9:39. Please join me with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first order of business, may I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss litigation? Sarah moves, John seconds, all in favor? Okay, this won't take long. Okay. My first Selectmen's report, some of this was covered in the department head meeting, but I'm giving this for people that are just going to tune into the Board of Selectmen portion of today. So the CDC has updated their recommendations for COVID vaccines, and they updated it on October 3rd. Yes, October 3rd. So people 12 years and older should receive the updated bivalent booster if it's been 2 months since their last COVID vaccine or booster. So again, it's recommended that you get the updated booster. The health department has flu clinics scheduled for the 25th and 27th of October and November 1st and 8th. And you can make an appointment through the health department website, and the charge is $40 payable by cash or check. We are still in the extended period of due diligence for the purchase of Great Island. Investigations have uncovered some important issues that must be adequately addressed before the town can take ownership. In important news for residents, Aquarian has filed an application with the Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority. We're going to go with PURA for that from now on, for new water rates that are effective in March of next year. So for the average Darien homeowner without an irrigation system or significantly heavier use in the summer, rates will rise approximately 9%. If you're a heavier user of water, especially if you have a robust irrigation system, you could see your prices increase 12 to 15% during those months. There is an opportunity to submit public comment to PURA, and its information is on our website on how to do that, and you have until October 25th for that information to be considered in this hearing process. I attended the Division of Emergency and Management and Homeland Security Region 1, DEMIS for short, the field day in September. First responders, town officials from Darien, the 13 other towns in our region were there to take a look at the advanced mutual aid that is available within our region that can be used in an emergency situation. WestCog has hired Dewberry engineers to establish a flood mitigation and project management assistance program. So they will be working directly with residents who could benefit from FEMA assistance. They have sent a letter out, and they will follow up with a postcard to these residents that are on the repetitive or severe repetitive loss list. And they will be having meetings which will be noted on the postcard. And you can also reach out to my office for more information on that. And they will also be working with the town to review flood mitigation projects that we are doing that may be eligible for state or federal grants. So this is a very fortunate thing for us from WestCog. WestCog is in the final stages of fee negotiations. Actually, the Department of Transportation is working with the consultant for the Quiet Zone study, and we're expecting a contract for that to be signed hopefully this week. The asphalt sidewalk on Nearwater Lane between Nickerson Lane and Woodland Drive is complete, and the intersection project over at West Avenue in Norotan is about 35% complete. I want to thank everyone who took time out of their busy Saturday to drop off food for person to person. Volunteers were busy all morning and collected almost 1,350 pounds of food. My appreciation goes out to everybody who donated and everybody who helped with that event as far as volunteering goes. I want to thank Kip Coons for allowing the department to use Coons parking lot, and also the Norotan Fire Department for helping to support this drive. And a special thank you to the Director of Youth Commission, Alyssa Sillers, for helping to organize this, and also to Jeremy Ginsburg, who you probably don't think is on the Youth Commission committee, because he's not, but he was out there for hours helping on this. So just a big thank you to everybody in town that helps, and anybody in town hall that helps. It's really, really appreciated. Some residents are aware of the dispute between the post office and Baywater properties, and which may result in enclosing of the Darien post office prior to its relocation space being available. There is a possibility that a trailer will be used before that space is ready. And while this is a situation between the post office and Baywater, the town has been working to see how they can help in this process and is ready to, I've offered to have our building department work to expedite the trailer permitting process and help in any other way that the town can. In the meantime, the Norotan Heights post office is open. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 11, and noon to 4:30 over in Norotan Heights. The post office is now underneath the Palmer's building. Congratulations to Greeb's Pharmacy for reaching its 75th milestone birthday. Thank you to everybody in Darien for shopping local. And I want to end by saying that we are, sorry, 1 second. We are very deeply saddened by the shooting in Bristol, and it's hard to imagine what their family is going through, our police department's families, and the families of the officers that were slain and hurt, and our sincere condolences go out to all. Okay, sorry about that. Kate? Anything?
Just briefly, I'm going to be sending out to you draft schedules for 2023 ahead of your meeting in 2 weeks. So take a look at them. Some months are difficult to schedule. For example, September, we have 2 Mondays that are not available because of Labor Day and Rosh Hashanah. So we may have to look at maybe a Tuesday or something like that. We're going to have a very busy schedule in November. You're going to have a lot on your agenda, so I will also be sending some other material to you, particularly for your November 7th meeting, ahead of time so that you'll have time to look at it and be ready for questions. You won't necessarily be taking action, but I want to give you as much lead time as possible, so things may be coming to you ahead of the agendas. One of the things that we will have for you in November is an update on the use of ARPA funds, which have been previously requested. And that's it. Oh, budget prep, I'm sorry. We have begun budget prep. We did do an off-site meeting with department heads and non-reps 2 weeks ago, reviewed how to use OpenGov, went through any changes in the budget process, and reviewed capital budgets and stuff like that. So department heads are working on their budgets for next year already.
Kate, I have one question. On the calendar, how would we, for a month like September where we're challenged, if we didn't actually have enough material to fill 2 meetings, what would we do to have 1 meeting scheduled?
Well, you know, the charter says that you're supposed to have 2 meetings, but, you know, we've talked about this with town council in the past. There's really nothing in the charter that says, provides a penalty if you don't. You know, could be an opportunity to look at having 1 meeting that just gets you caught up on appointments, and where all you do is interview people and to be appointed to boards. But we usually, it's rare that we find a meeting, you know, where we don't have anything to be done.
But if we did, we could cancel it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Kate? No. Okay. So now we will go on to board liaison reports. Sarah?
The Thriving Youth Task Force next meets in November, and the Henley Homes Memorial Building Committee, members who are here tonight, or today rather, has been moving along. We have a lot going on right now, and as of right now, the schematic designs for the schools have been approved with some discussions continuing regarding the mechanical and engineering phase. So, and we look forward to our discussion today.
Okay, thank you. John?
So I already reported on the IT at the last meeting. Our next meeting actually is not until the 27th, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, it's late, I think.
I got rescheduled from this Thursday, but an objective is to actually have some actionable recommendations we can start to shape. I'd like to bring those to this board before the end of the year.
Okay. Marcy?
Sure. Oxbridge Building Committee, we met last week. Things are going great. The foundation has been poured for the accessory dwelling, and some of the structures have been put up. A lot of feedback from the staff on just trying to figure out the logistics inside of the school with all the kids and the space, but it's been working. Things are going good, on time, on budget, which is, always great news. We met yesterday was Monday, with the Mental Health Task Force. I want to do another plug for the Out of the Darkness Suicide Prevention Walk that is going to be held on Saturday. Again, that begins at 10 a.m. at Jessup Park in Westport. Again, there is a very strong turnout for Darien, so if you can attend, I definitely, as somebody who's participated in this event for years and years and years, it is an amazing healing event, and it's great for our community to get there and sort of see that they are not alone in their fight and their struggle. We also scheduled the November 19th Survivors Day, and yesterday we had a discussion that is going to be held at Enrollment Presbyterian. It's from 9 to 1 on a Saturday in November 19th. We discussed yesterday as sort of opening it up. So what Survivors Day is an opportunity for people that have had a direct impact from loss and survivors. So it tends to be close family members, parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, close friends, co-workers, and there's a lot of opportunity to group together with like suicide survivors. So we decided yesterday that we would open it up to a larger community, not just Darien, so that people who may have had a loss of a sibling or may have had a loss of a child can really connect with people that have undergone the same sort of experience. So American Foundation for Suicide Prevention will start to do some promotional work and get that out to sort of a broader community. And Enrollment Presbyterian, because they have such a large facility, was really willing to open that up. So it'll be a great opportunity, like I said, for members of our community who have felt such a really close loss to connect with other people who are going through the same sort of grief. Aside from that, that's the latest and greatest.
Thanks. Okay, public comment, Kate? Do we have
None.
Next order of business is to discuss and take action on a request from the Board of Education for care, custody, and control of the property at 32 Hoyt Street. And Kate, you want to start?
So you may recall a few years back, it's probably maybe 8 to 10 years back, we purchased a property that was completely surrounded by the homeschool property out on Hoyt Street, and it was the Curtis property. The Board of Education has asked us to turn care, custody, and control over to that property to help facilitate the renovation project at homeschool. So we have the vice chairman, we have the superintendent of schools here to answer any specific questions you may have regarding that.
I guess the only question is just sort of what's happened that led up to this, and why is this particular decision needed?
So I'm the vice chairman of the board of ed, but also the HHRBC. So I'll speak from the building committee side first. Yes.
Jill, will you go to the
Yes,
mic?
I will. Yes. Thank you. So as part of the educational specifications that the Board of Ed passed underneath parking for the home site, the ask was that we investigate the Curtis property, or 32 Hoyt, and find out whether there was any utility for the school campus. We looked at it specifically thinking it would be a good spot for parking, but in that we discovered that it actually potentially solves 3 needs for us. One is stormwater drainage support, so we were looking at it as potentially the drainage support for the entire Holmes campus. The second is service and emergency access, so we're looking at building a road so that emergency vehicles can get all the way back behind. And also it would be used for construction staging, so that enables us to not set up on the playground, but to actually set up over on the Curtis property and get around to the back of the building when we need to. So we have heard back from the community that there is some concern about particularly parking and light on that site. So we will, our next meeting is tomorrow night. We will continue to listen to the public about what their concerns are. We will take those into account. So what we have proposed as a schematic design up to this point may or may not be the final design. We need to hear a little bit more, but we are resolved that we absolutely need the space for drainage and for service and emergency access.
And if I could add, there really is no use to the town for that property. because it's completely surrounded by the homeschool property. This is the best, turning it over to the school for their use in conjunction, is the best use of that property.
Jill, you penciled out 16 parking spots there? Somewhere in there?
15.
So not 100? Like,
No, not 100.
Okay.
About, 15 or 16. Yeah.
And how big is that parcel?
The actual acreage of the parcel, Lynn, do you know, Kevin? Quarter of an acre.
Quarter of an acre, okay. Any other questions?
I don't.
Marcy? No? Okay, so, thank you. Any other comments?
No, I'll just say that the excitement of these three buildings, in particular, obviously Oxridge, and I also want to thank Sarah for her leadership.
Alan, will you speak up here, only because for Channel 79?
No,
They're
I
not gonna-
just want to say, just while we have the opportunity, the excitement of these three buildings, particularly amongst the parent community, the staff, and the communities inside the schools, is really palpable to some degree, right? And I just want to let you know that, because sometimes you don't feel that, sometimes you don't see the fruit of your labours, and it's just tremendous to see these buildings come online for our young people, and the excitement that's engendered. So for teaching and learning, and for future generations. So thank you for Sarah for your leadership, for Jill and Chris as they oversee the committee's work. But it's going well. There's a lot of excitement there. If you're interested in seeing flyovers, just go to the main page of the website right there, and you'll see flyovers of the three schools. But thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the request from the Board of Education for care, custody, and control of the town property at 32 Hoyt Street? John moves. Marcy seconds. All in favor?
May I ask a question? Do I need to recuse myself or no?
Not at all.
No.
Thank
No. No. You are a liaison.
Thank you.
All in favor? Okay. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for waiting. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes of the October 3rd, 2022 regular meeting. Any additions, deletions?
They look good.
They look good, okay. May I have a motion to approve as presented? Sarah moves. John seconds. All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Okay, that was the only minutes. Okay. Any items board members would like to see on a future agenda?
No, no.
No? Okay. May I then have a motion to adjourn? Marcy moves. Sarah seconds. Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, 79.
Thank you.